So I went straight to University of California, Santa Barbara, straight from high school. During orientation, I was laying in bed and I was looking up at the ceiling, and I couldn't help but to think that I had a lot of doubt whether I was really ready for this or not. UCSB is on the quarter system. The first quarter was a rough start, but I didn't do so well. And then the second quarter came around and I wasn't really doing any better. In fact, I think I was starting to do worse. Got the letter that I was academically disqualified. So for me, that was very difficult to deal with because at home I had my my parents that had an expectation, and then even everyone had an expectation from me. And so I felt like I was failing myself, I was failing them. And also to a certain extent, there was almost like an embarrassment as well, like, having to pack up and go back home. I did find a full-time job that paid minimum wage, and I found a part-time job that also paid minimum wage. And I had to work like an average of 60 hours a week in order to make enough money to barely get by. So that was my new reality. I stopped and then I resumed, I believe it was fall of 2019, and I was taking 3 classes and working full-time still. And so my days off, I would go to school. And so from there on, I had to take another break, which was spring of 2020, because where I worked, they were closing down. Again, I couldn't continue. So, but fall of 2020, the pandemic was well underway, and so I had a renewed confidence in myself. I don't know where I got it. I successfully completed Calculus 1, but then something happens. And so I got a call from my brother saying that my dad had passed out, and so unfortunately he didn't make it. And so I got that news delivered to me via the phone, and it was very impersonal, and it was saddened that he had to pass away in that manner. But things happen, and we don't have control over these things. The interesting part was that it had happened 4 years on the same day that my grandmother, his mother, had passed away. It was just difficult to deal with it, especially during December 2020, which is when Los Angeles County was dealing with the worst of the pandemic. And so instead of grieving, my mind, my analytical mind activated, and it was about, okay, what do I need to do now in order to make sure my family's okay and I'm okay? And so it was like, I need to figure out how to make a funeral happen. I need to figure out how I'm going to get through this semester, which was about to begin after dealing with this, tragedy, personal tragedy. And so that helped me kind of separate the emotion from the analytical part of what I needed to do. And that helped me push through. But the reality is that in life, not everything is an analytical problem that you can solve. And so, but fortunately in this case, I was able to figure something out to make a funeral happen. And I mean, even caskets were becoming difficult to get. So I actually reserved and paid for one over the phone. Like, I think it was almost a month in advance, or at least 3 weeks in advance. And I was fortunate, but the actual funeral itself went wrong because even just going to the cemetery, there was an accident that delayed us by like almost 2 hours. And so even at the very end, there was always something going wrong. And I couldn't help to think to myself, why is everything going wrong? Is there going to be a period in my life where things going to go right? I got accepted into CSUL for fall of 2022 admissions, and then I finally felt relief in the sense that now, the timeline was finally clear. And so when I first arrived on campus on the first few days of school, I couldn't help but to feel out of place because it had been so long. Just walking around the computer science and engineering buildings, I felt out of place. I was like, is this really me? Is this finally happening? And I'm not sure how many people have asked themselves that, but it did feel like that for a while. And then little by little, it began to sink in. Like, it would say in the tight-end degree audit, it said mechanical engineering. And I started to believe it. And so, yeah, I felt like finally, I was on my way to becoming finally. I felt like I was on my way to finally becoming a mechanical engineer. So right now I feel like I'm closing this chapter, although I can't help but to think that I wish my dad and my grandmother were here to help see what I've accomplished. It was when I told them that that the teacher back in middle school told me that I was the only one that had gotten a perfect score on the exam. I think he was surprised because um, I'm not sure if he thought that I could do it, but it was good that I could prove to myself and to him that I did have what it took to do it. I wanted to make him proud, but he was the kind of person that was it was difficult for him to actually like express his emotions, and so it was difficult to get like it was difficult to impress him actually because his standards were set really high, and I did that to myself because of early on I had set those standards pretty high, and so it almost created an unreasonable expectation for myself early on, and so it was difficult to impress him. So when I would impress him, it was it was it was something that was out of the ordinary. But I could tell in his face that he was truly impressed, and then he congratulated me. Well, to be able to say his son is finally a mechanical engineer. Yeah, finally satisfied. Because I think you wanted to see that before passing away. I think my grandmother too.